There's so many things that go into creating the final image that you get out of your camera. Camera you use, location that you shoot, the composition, set design, the colors, the grade. But I think one of the biggest things that can sometimes be overlooked and that brings so much of the character to your image is the lens that you choose to put on your camera. So I was working on a project last year, and in some of the initial meetings I met with the director. I was going to be the DP for this project, and he had references, he had things that like this was what he wanted the project to look like, and he was showing me some of the stuff, and I was like, man, yeah, this looks really cool. And you know, of course I leave that meeting and I go and do a little bit of research and be like, what cameras, what lenses did they shoot these projects with? And obviously, like, you know, bigger shows, way bigger budgets, way bigger cameras, they can choose whatever they want to shoot with. The thing was, the shows that he was talking about, they had certain looks to them. They had a very distinct feel to them. What I ended up telling my director is, I can get you a look that is similar in some ways to this, but we can't fully get there just because camera, gear, limitations like that. But I think I have an idea of how to get a very distinct look for this project. And I told him, let's shoot this on vintage glass. And he said, yeah, let's just go with it, man. And that's kind of really what sent me down this road of using vintage glass. I ended up buying a handful of lenses, testing them out, seeing what worked. And in the end, I shot the whole short film with vintage lenses, the Canon FD 1.4 and a Canon FD knockoff lens. I think it was like by a smaller Japanese company, but the 28mm f2.8. And I love the way that this project turned out. But I think a big reason the film looks the way it does is because we shot it with vintage glass. I think that's just a testament that there's something different about these lenses. You can get into all the manufacturing of how these lenses are made and the quality of glass and the material and the coating and all that stuff, but they're from a different era, and I think that brings a different energy, it brings a different beauty, it brings different imperfections. So like everybody else who's been on filmmaking YouTube for like the last decade, there's trends that come and go, and people talk a ton about lenses, vintage lenses, lenses that need to be razor sharp, you know, cinema primes, all these different things. There's so many trends and fads that come and go. You kind of hear everything get hyped up, and so you kind of get a little bit jaded about what actually makes a difference when I'm trying to buy cameras and lenses and gear and all that stuff. And I kind of followed that initial trend of people wanting lenses that were razor sharp and were like super good. And you know, for a long time, like one of my dream lenses was the Sigma 18-35, which is a great lens. You know, I'm using it right now and it's awesome. But after being in that super sharp phase with lenses, I kind of wanted something else out of my lenses. I wanted to try something different. And that's kind of when I started looking at vintage lenses. You'll look up videos about vintage lenses and people talk about that there's a certain quality that these lenses give to your footage, and I think that's really true. Vintage lenses were interesting to me because it was just something very different, and I always liked the look that these lenses gave, and I think I couldn't even describe that fully to you. There was just some people I would watch their videos and I was like, man, there's a lot of stuff I really love about that. And like I said at the top of this, you know, there's a lot of factors that go into making an image that you might like. You might really love a color grade, you might really love somebody's eye for composition, but I do think a big factor is the lens choice, and vintage lenses just have a quality to them that is really kind of hard to quantify. I've wanted to make a video for the longest time about these lenses. You know, like here's a 28mm, like a Canon FD 28mm. I love using this one. Here's like an old zoom lens that it kind of extends out with the tube, which is pretty sweet. And here's probably my favorite one that I own. It's like a Canon FD 50mm f1.4. Man, this thing is razor sharp, and when you get it wide open, the bokeh is crazy out of it. But I've taken so many pictures and videos with it that I really love the look of, and I think a lot of it leans heavily on that lens because I've used it across all my different cameras and I'm always really happy with how it looks. They give you just a different quality, a different energy to your footage, and when you combine that with other things, you just get a really powerful, really beautiful, very unique image. And I think that's what we're all looking for as people making videos, filmmakers. We want something that's a little bit unique. It stands out from the crowd. And I know you might be saying, hey man, like you're doing the same vintage thing that lots of other people talk about. But I do think it's a piece in trying different things that unlock your creative voice. And a big part of unlocking my creative voice has been trying different things and using vintage lenses and just seeing how they really resonate with the type of images that I'm trying to make. There's just something special about them. Just the same way I talk about like the EOS M and Magic Lantern and some of the images I get from the footage and stuff. There's just something special about it. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I appreciate you stopping by. I think vintage glass is a really cool thing. You should definitely check it out. I'd love to hear any stories that you have about adapting vintage glass or lenses that you really like, or what's your go-to. So let me know down in the comments, and until next time, Reel Filmmaking, and I'm out of here.